Welcome back to the channel. It's a very exciting time as many of you are waiting in anticipation for your Type S NSX. Production has begun. And the first two have already been shipped from what I understand, and are in the Gotham Gray, which of course is one of my favorite colors. Probably number 2 though. As far as the Type S, a lot of people are still hoping they'll get one. Although it's not looking good, all reports are saying that this is going to be it this year, and they're going to hold their guns to the 350. So for those of you that are waiting, there aren't very many options left. However, I have heard that there is one in Ohio that is selling for $1 million. If that is within your budget, then that is something you might want to consider. The other possibility is that maybe somebody will still back out. But given the value of the car and already the appreciation that is anticipated, that might be a difficult task. A few other people have been talking to me, asking me what other potential options there are. Well, when I look at the situation for me, and I break down the Type S, all the things that were done as far as, the GT3 turbos, the fuel system, the injectors, those are all great, but in actuality, it is only a 27 horsepower bump, rounding it out to 600. So a lot of those things are very nice, but are they going to make an earth-shattering difference? I would say personally, probably not. My guess would be that I won't even be able to tell the difference in horsepower between the regular NSX and the Type S. However, this formula really is based on the look. And those of you that have Ferrari and Lamborghinis know exactly how this works. A whole bunch of things that sound cool, a moderate increase in power, but yet radical styling. So if you break down the NSX Type S to me, the front nose is really what makes the difference. Now, some have commented they don't like it. Well, that's your choice. I mean, a lot of those people that have regular NSXs do prefer that look. For me, I like the Type S. The other thing you look at with the Type S is appreciation, intrinsic value. I hate to look at it that way, but that is just reality. I mean, with everything going crazy, will it be worth something? Maybe, maybe not. Is that the real reason I bought it? Not for me, but unfortunately it's always in the back of my mind. I just wanted to have it for my collection. Now, because of those reasons, you could just pull it off with a regular NSX if you wanted to. Now, I mean, you take the rear, right? So the rear is just an enhanced version of the regular NSX. I mean, will 90% of the population notice the difference? Probably not. Nowhere near the amount of people that will notice the difference of the Type S front bumper. And the funny thing about this is, when I was at Honda shooting the yellow Type S, my bud John even asked me, "Are you really going to drive it that much?" And I told him, honestly, I don't know. Luckily for me, with all my cars, it spreads out the mileage a lot. So even if I tried to drive it as much as I possibly could with all my other responsibilities in life, I don't put that many miles on. But he did bring up a good point. He said, why don't you just buy a regular NSX and convert it? My good friends at Honda were nice enough to provide me with my own version of the NSX parts catalog, which hopefully in effect will end up helping all of you. And I just want to say thanks to my good friend Mitch at Honda for sending me this super cool NSX shirt, along with a whole bunch of other NSX items, as he knows I'm a true enthusiast. But as we get to the question at hand, how difficult would it be to convert a regular NT1 NSX to a Type S? Well, this is the key. This is what I've been waiting for so I could take a look at it. Now, as we talked about, anything is possible, but to do the entire conversion would probably be counter cost prohibitive. Now, for me, what I'm most interested in is the look, as all of you know. So the best thing here is to take a look and see what share components we have and what will work. As we take a look at the front fenders, it's pretty interesting. I'll tell you why. The cool thing is that the front fenders are actually shared with the regular NSX, which makes it much more tolerable as far as costs and painting. But Upon further investigation, I would have thought that the front undertray would be different, but it's actually not, according to what I'm seeing here. It's the same, so that would be shared. But here's where the issue is. The front fender liners, they're actually different. They have a different part number. There's obviously a different configuration, but how different they are, I don't know. Obviously, to keep costs down, my number one choice would be to modify those fender liners versus buying new ones, as I'm sure they are not cheap. But just keep that in mind as we move through the process here. Good news on the hood. The hood looks like it does share the same part number, which means, of course, all those aftermarket options that are available out there, you could just go ahead and get and use on the Type S. But the biggest thing is that means that the edge will line up, hopefully, with the Type S nose, which would allow you to do the conversion. And if you didn't want to change the hood, obviously that would be much more cost effective. By taking a look here, I can see that the front bumper is the same all the way to the 21, which is probably not the greatest thing, because that means there's an entire different parts catalog section for just the Type S front bumper. The Type S front bumper has its own entire section, and there are very few shared components with the regular NSX. I didn't have time to go through everything because the list is quite extensive. But most of you that do this type of work know that what we'll try and do is modify all the ducting and everything off of the regular NSX nose to save costs. I would imagine to change everything over would just be insanely expensive. Looking specifically at the front bumper and the front bumper lower spoiler, that would probably be the two key components. Now we know that the front undertray would fit. The front bumper itself would line up with the hood and the fenders. The fender liners would probably be best off making them work if possible. But all that ducting, if it could be modified, I mean, like all these cars that I change the nose on, almost always I modify the ducting to make it work. I mean, especially like on the Mercy, those cars do not come with the ducting. So the hope would be you could just modify it. Now that of course would be a lot of labor, so you'd have to weigh it. But my guess would be because of the amount of ducting that's necessary, the cost would be cheaper if you could modify it. Do I know? No, I wouldn't know unless I actually got in to do the job. But you could look into all those part numbers and see. Now, in the actual work that's being done, cost. I know that's probably on everyone's mind, so I don't know. I was able to ask my bud at Honda, and what he told me was he estimates $10,000 just for the front bumper and lower spoiler. Now, that might seem a little bit, but when you compare it to everything else, it's really not that bad in all honesty to get the look. Honda was very clear when they told me that they do not want people with regular NSXs converting to the Type S. I don't know, does that rule still stand for someone like me that has a Type S and then wants to buy a regular NSX and just give it that look so I can shelf my Type S? I don't know, maybe. But they're going to scrutinize VIN numbers very carefully. So again, if we circle back, I think the key to pulling one of these projects off is having a friend that you can get a Type S VIN number from. And you might not be able to do it very often because they're scrutinizing so heavily. Now, could somebody take this and build parts with a mold, carbon fiber, possibly pre-preg? Definitely. Is that something I'm interested in doing? Absolutely not. I'm not in the business of making parts, and especially because I don't know if that would disrupt my relationship with my friends at Honda. But it is a possibility. The thing to always remember about the NSX is there just weren't a whole lot made. I mean, I believe total production run with the Type S is going to be maybe under 2,000 units. So any company would have to think, are they actually going to be able to sell enough to make money on these? But that's just my take on it. On another note, for those of you that are preparing for your Type S to arrive, I will mention something else, in that I was trying to find out from Honda for sure if the catalytic converter assembly is the same. And I can say after investigating in the parts catalog, it would appear it is the same. So I contacted my bud Chris at Science of Speed, and he is building my downpipes, which, because of the supply chain problems and everything else going on in the world, will take quite some time. So if any of you are interested in ordering downpipes for your Type S, here is the factory part number for reference, but it is the same throughout the years, which is great news. I, of course, was a little concerned that it would still bolt up to the turbine housing, but everything is looking good. So you can gain a lot of time and potentially save yourself some money if you want to go ahead and order it and get it coming for your car. I was really hoping to get my exhaust ordered and possibly in hand before my Type S landed, but also because of all the cost increase. Now, the great thing is that with the parts manual in hand, I can tell you that there is good news. Looking at it, I can see that the exhaust is the same as the 21 and earlier, as you can see the part number here. However, I was talking again to Chris at Science of Speed about it, and I asked him to potentially build me my own custom Inconel setup. The problem that he brought up was this. He's not sure if the diffuser opening will be the same on the Type S, so the exhaust may not line up perfectly. As I was looking at the exhaust opening on the regular NSX, it did appear that potentially there is some room. But a lot of the aftermarket exhausts, including the Science of Speed exhaust, take up all that room. If alignment's off at all, then it may not fit. There is always the option to modify the exhaust to make it work, but I would prefer that everything just be right from the start. So for me, under his advice, I'm gonna wait. But if you're going to get an exhaust that doesn't use all available space through the opening of the diffuser, that's something you consider ordering and getting ahead. For me, since my production is not scheduled to around June or July, there's a good chance that many of you will know before me how much room there actually is. And please feel free to share that. The rear bumper is a bit of the same story as the front. Unfortunately, there aren't very many shared components. As you can see, the Type S has its own section, and a lot of those components are different. We already knew that the bumper was different by looking at it, the actuator vents, plus also the GT3 rear diffuser. But one thing about the rear section that caught me off guard that was a bit alarming is that between the different years, there's a different part number for the rear fender, and that made me think that they had changed the fenders for the Type S. But I was able to touch base with my friends at Honda, and they were able to clear things up. They gave me this really long answer that was very complicated, so I'm just going to cut to the chase. The bottom line is that all the fenders are the same, but within the groups, they have different part numbers. As ironic as that is, but at least you'll know if you're going to do the rear section, the fenders are okay. And just in case any of you hear FIF, which I did not know what that was, that is Honda's code for factory installed feature. So when people reference that, then you'll be able to understand what they're talking about. But if you want to do the rear section, my guess is, without bugging my friends at Honda again, it's going to be quite pricey. The other item under consideration for that rear bumper is the rear hatch. But I'm happy to report, if we take a look here, the hatch stayed consistent throughout the years. So you can see the part number for reference, but that should give you a pretty good idea of what you're up against if you want to change that rear bumper. Now, to sum everything up, is it possible to convert a regular NSX to look like a Type S? For sure, especially focusing on the front nose, which is what I would do. Now, would it be affordable? Hard to say. I don't know for sure, but obviously you know that that $10,000 is floating out there. And oftentimes in projects, things never go as planned, especially in the budget department. But I will say this, if you're lucky enough to have a friend that has a Type S that will help you with this, that would be great. Or if you have a Type S coming, this obviously makes this a whole lot easier. But I'll share a little story with you, specifically on the Mercy. On the Mercy, I was interested in potentially getting some SV seats. And Lambo and Ferrari, they do the same thing. Everything is VIN specific. If you don't have one, you can't order one. But I will say that one particular dealership that I work with has access to VIN numbers from the cars that they've sold. And they have told me that in the past, for good customers, they have ordered parts successfully from limited edition models for customers that they can convert their cars. So obviously you know where I'm going here. If you have a very good relationship with your Acura dealer, then there's a very good chance that they can figure out a way to pull this off for you. Well, there you have it. You've got all the information that I've got as far as changing the front nose on the regular NSX to the Type S, and hopefully it'll help all of you out. I'm going to go ahead and enjoy the rest of my weekend in the Mercy as I wait in anticipation for my Type S to get finished up. I hope all of you have a great weekend.